It's Rachelsey at the movies, yay!
Although, I don't know if we say yay about this movie.
Why not?
Okay. Maybe. I didn't mean for it to come out that way.
Yeah. It was a good... Just... It's Rachelsey at the movies, yay!
We went and saw the movie The Farewell. This is a movie about a Chinese family. Some of the family still lives in China, some lives in America, some lives in Japan. And something happens in their family where the matriarch of the family is diagnosed with cancer. She's about to die. And it's basically how this family deals with this. And in America, seeing this movie as an American, it's very different because the culture is very different. And I don't, this is not a spoiler, I think this is part of like why people went and saw the movie. There is a custom in China where if somebody is going to die, that you don't tell that person they're going to die. So the family has decided not to share with this matriarch that her diagnosis is that she has 3 months to live or less. And they choose not to share it, and so you kind of get to see the dynamics of how all that plays out amongst the family. Kelsey, go wait or skip.
Oh, I'm going to say wait to see this movie because I can't tell somebody to go see this movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good movie, but I don't care about it. But, I hadn't really thought about this. I'm going to say... Am I going to tell people to go see it? I'm going to say to go see this movie. It's outside the traditional norms of mainstream movies, but it's a very beautifully made movie with fine acting. It gives you insight into a different culture, which is awesome. Even though it gives you a view into another culture, the themes in the movie apply to all people, like universal themes usually do. And I just thought it was a really well-made, excellent movie that dealt with a difficult subject, which is that we're all going to die, and kind of showed the family dynamics around that piece of all of our lives.
I'm going to say wait to see this movie. I also thought it was a really well-made movie, and I appreciated the dealing with the difficult subject matter of death. And I feel like especially here in America, we've lost some of our rituals and customs that maybe other cultures have around death, so we have a harder time processing it. It was really good, but I can't say that, like, had I never seen this movie, would I be upset that I had missed it? Is there something huge that I would have missed in my life? And I don't think that that's the case. I think like you can, if you have the opportunity to see it, like, see it. It's a really good movie, but I think that you don't have to like rush out and like you like absolutely have to see this movie.
What about that movie we saw with The Rock in it, where he didn't have a leg? It was like a crappy version of Die Hard, sort of.
Skyscraper?
I'm pretty sure you told people to go see that.
It was so fun.
But I mean, like, your life wouldn't have been worse without seeing that movie too, right? This was clearly a better movie than that movie.
It was clearly a better movie, but I was pretty happy when I was done seeing Skyscraper. Like, I remember just grinning, like, ear to ear. Like, it was such a, you know.
All right.
So there's something to be said about going, like, out to the movies and seeing something totally fun and stuff. Like, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Spoilers.
So, yeah, I thought this movie, what I really liked about this movie was taking the extra time to create shots that...
for art.
Yeah, that like would have been maybe unnecessary. Maybe if you were on a smaller budget or something, like you don't take the time to bring the camera out and like, you know, like I remember this one shot, it was a family like walking across a crosswalk and it was a whole nother setup that they had to do to get that shot. And I think that that is the type of thing that gives a movie quality and even a certain amount of like visual depth. And they did a really excellent job in this movie with that.
Let me give you some spoilers.
Okay.
You're going to have to read when you go see this movie,
Okay.
unless you understand Chinese and possibly a little bit of Japanese, because the fiance of one of the people knows Japanese. So just keep that in mind. I liked this movie a lot because of the way that it was in both English and the other languages, and it kind of mixed all together. I liked the journey of the main character. What was her name? Her name in real life is Glacier.
It's Awkwafina.
Yeah, she was in Crazy Rich Asians as one of the side characters in that movie. I looked up stuff about her. She's a writer and a actress, and she's awesome. She did a great job. I thought that her role was the most important one in the film, and I think that she did a pretty flawless job of showing the struggle a younger person has, especially like a person moving to New York and trying to, live there. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And then going back to China, I love the scene when they're all sitting around the dinner table and everybody's just super dysfunctional and like saying mean stuff together with smiles on their faces. That depicts stuff that happens a lot in real life. And then I also love the struggle for the main character because her biggest struggle is that she wants to tell her grandma that her grandma has cancer, but the family doesn't want to do that, and they don't want to do that because that's part of their Chinese culture. And her struggle with identity and what's right, in the United States this would be illegal, but where she is, she doesn't know what to do. And just seeing that play out in the film, I thought was really beautiful and stirring. There were funny things in the movie, and there were sweet things in the movie, and I just thought it was a good movie.
I thought that the movie was very real, in that even though the culture was very different from my culture, I still identified with how normal everything was, in that from like you had like people that lived in like normal homes. Like I feel like a lot of times I see in TV and movies, it's like always these families in these like really nice houses where like they're always clean and they're always like, and I'm like, that's not how the average like family lives. Like I can't like identify with that. But this was very real. Like her grandmother lived in a small like apartment in China. She like was broke herself and lived in this really like tiny rundown New York
like
apartment.
People really do in New York.
Her parents lived in like a more of a middle class like kind of home, but people had like different income levels and how they lived, but even how they interacted, I felt like there was a reasonable amount of dysfunction. I feel like when we make American movies like this, it's like when these families get together, they're like super dysfunctional, like crazy dysfunctional. And so like in this, a good example of this is it's very clear at the outset that her dad has a struggle with alcohol, because she visits her family to do laundry, and she's like, Dad, what's wrong? Because she doesn't know about the grandmother at this point. And she's like, have you been drinking? Nobody asks their dad that unless there's been a drinking issue in the family. But like she says that, and then like later on throughout the movie, this kind of plays out like a little bit, but not like her dad doesn't at any point like flip out and like, go outside like half clothed and the cops are like, I feel like this was more how this probably plays out in real life.
Yeah, it was realistic and not celebrated. There's a difference. And the fiction of it was realistic.
And then like it wasn't like good and it wasn't okay, but it just was. Like there was codependency on display. There was just people not being willing to feel their feelings. Like the mother was not vulnerable at all, It was just very real, and I really appreciated that.
My favorite thing about the movie was that me watching it in American, I was like, I would have just told my grandma, because I'm not secret keeping. That's dumb. That's dysfunctional. But she didn't do that. She chose not to do that because of her heritage, because of her Chinese culture, which is a totally valid thing to do. My favorite thing is that her grandma, at the end of the movie, didn't die. Maybe because they didn't tell her, and because we watched a documentary recently of how much the mind can play part. So that if somebody tells you have cancer and 6 months to live, if your brain thinks you only have 6 months to live, it contributes to you only having 6 months to live.
Right.
And if you didn't know that, or if some people have put healthy thoughts in their head, have helped them. So I love that in the movie, how she ultimately didn't go.
So the movie was based on real events. Like this was a real event that happened with a family. And so the end of the movie closes with a video of the grandmother who is still alive. And it's been 6 years now. So she had a 3-month diagnosis. It's now been 6 years. And part of the reasoning that we learn from one of the sons that they don't tell people if they're going to die is because when they said people in China, when people have cancer, the fear of the diagnosis contributes to like the death and their quality of life. So they just don't tell them. And he also had like these other reasons for, and it was very,
it's just interesting to see and to hear and learn about, and to see it on screen. I thought it was a really awesome movie.
Oh, I thought it was really sweet to see this family. This was something I had a harder time identifying with, but seeing this family, I mean, they really like loved their grandmother. The two grandkids were especially, the grandson was about to get married, and they're having these festivities while they know all this is about to happen. And they there's alcohol at the wedding. And anyway, he drinks too much and then ends up standing in the middle of the banquet hall just bawling and sobbing because like his grandmother's about to die. And I thought that was also just a really one of those real normal like things that might happen, you know. And it was like almost like a Knights of Columbus haul, you know, like it was just so like normal, and I just appreciated that like throughout the whole thing. But it was a really good reflection on death and how people process death and handle death. And also I thought a good reflection on how little control we have and how little knowledge we actually have about the future, because this entire family was distraught because they thought their grandmother was going to die in less than 3 months. And then she ended up living 6 more years. So I'm sure that this granddaughter, who's the main character of the film, in the film she goes back to New York and she thinks like this is her final goodbye.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't. You know what I mean? So we think that we know so much in our lives and that we have all this control, but like we really have like no idea like what the future is going to bring us.
I agree.
Well, we appreciate you watching Rachelsey at the Movies. And if you wouldn't mind,
no,
if you haven't
listen,
already...
No, listen. Everybody's going to die. Before you die, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to Rachelsey at the Movies. It'll be like one of the most special and awesome things that you've ever done. I got weird. Do it.